Hello, everyone. We'll begin in just a minute. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for taking the time to join us. Some quick housekeeping items before we get started. In the Zoom control panel, you will find the chat, raise hand, and Q&A features. We encourage you to use the chat to engage with the presenters and audience throughout the presentation. Note that the chats can be sent to hosts only or hosts and all audience members. The raise hand and Q&A features are available if you would like to ask a question. To ask a question directly to presenters, click raise hand and accept the unmute prompt. Your microphone will be muted again after your question is answered. Questions can also be submitted at any time during the presentation via the Q&A box in your Zoom control panel. A brief survey will appear on your screen after today's webinar concludes, and we appreciate any feedback that you have for us. Today's webinar is being recorded, and you'll receive an email with a link to the replay and instructions for viewing on demand. I will now turn it over to our presenters.
Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Top Trends in 529 Plans. I'm your host, Paul Curley, Director of Savings Research with ISS Market Intelligence, and I am joined here today with Tim Grell, Executive Director of Ohio's 529 Plan College Advantage. Tim, please say welcome and please add any additional information as you'd like for today's webinar.
Good afternoon, everyone, and we appreciate you joining us, and we always welcome an opportunity to talk about 529 plans.
Thank you, Tim. And for today's webinar, it's a continuation of our webinar series that we started and launched in 2020 to 2022, where the goal is to share best practices, support the community, and to create long-term growth for the industry. And as a quick note, we do have the upcoming 529 Conference 2022 in October. Please save the date. The location is Ritz-Carlton in Orlando. We're going to have a all-day training seminar called the 529 Essentials Seminar. We're going to have the 529 Conference and the ABLE Afternoon Summit dedicated to the ABLE industry. Registration is now open at 529conference.com, and the early bird rate is available through June 16th. And for an overview of today's session, today's agenda, we're going to talk about 529 day reminders, tips and best practices. We're going to be talking about market data, industry updates, and top trends. And we're going to be taking questions at the end, but also please feel free to ask questions as we'll be addressing them throughout today's session as well. And with that, we'll start off with 529 day reminders, tips, and best practices. And as we think about 529 day introduction, overview, and goal, Tim, can you please provide us an overview of the 529 day and its goals, what we're trying to achieve here today, but just overall? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Paul. Yeah, and thanks again for joining us. I know that our audience is much like whenever we were out and about to talk to people about 529 plans, we probably get one of three responses. When you say 529, folks say, yep, we know about it, we've been investing in it, and it works great. Other people will say, I know a little bit about it, and still others are, I don't know what you're talking about. Is it some state route or some address or an area code? And so with that in mind, we'll talk about here briefly. If you are familiar with 529s, hopefully what we talk about will reinforce your understanding of it. Maybe we'll even tell you something new that's been developing in the industry. If you're relatively new to 529, then hopefully some background will help you understand. What we find when we go out about to talk is that maybe people have heard of 529, but a lot of times there's a lot of misinformation or simply misunderstanding about 529s in general. 529 plans have been around for quite a while. In Ohio, actually, in the late 80s and early 90s, they established or recognized that they needed to give Ohio residents an ability to save and invest for education expenses after high school. And so they established a guaranteed savings plan. This was closed to new contributions and new accounts in 2003. Then in the mid 90s, like many other states started, Ohio passed legislation to establish a variable savings plan. Ohio has two parts to that. There's a direct plan and an advisor plan. Other states followed, and to the point where we are today, that every state in the country has a 529 plan, with the exception of Wyoming. These plans are state entities. They're structured different ways. The office size will vary. We in Ohio fall under the Ohio Department of Higher Education. We have a 31-person full-time staff here in our office. Other offices fall under the Treasurer of State, and there are some that are independent state agencies. So before we can get into why, what is a 529, I think we have to ask ourselves and frame any conversation as to why a 529. Student loan debt is the enemy here. It's eclipsing $1.7 trillion of debt in our country, and many people will just default to taking out loans to pay for those education expenses after high school. Our vision here is a nation where families are better able to afford college. And I think regardless of the plan, there will be some variation of that and some goal or objective that sounds like that for any plan. And so many, instead of this option, let me frame it this way. If you, select a school, whether that's a trade school, technical school, 2-year, 4-year public private university, you're committed to the objective of receiving a degree or a certificate. You come out to an exciting career opportunity. Everything's going great, only to be strapped for the next 10, 15, 20 years with student loan debt. And this would come at the expense of saving for retirement, saving to buy a home, maybe considering getting married, starting a family. When children come along, you're paying off your debt. Maybe there aren't resources to save for the children coming along. We would submit, and I think any of us in the 529 business would urge you to consider paying some upfront, and in the form of a 529 plan. And a 529 plan is simply the opportunity to invest after-tax dollars into stock market options. These investments grow tax-free, and whenever they're withdrawn for qualified expenses, there's not a tax complication or implication. And a lot of people are daunted by the cost, and this causes a paralysis. And or I'll get to it, or we'll never be able to save that much. What we would urge people to consider is start modestly. Maybe a small investment. Many of the plans you can start with the lowest $25. As far as an investment, and you can go as high as you want. Maybe your goal is to save 40%, in a 529, and these other resources will come into play to pay for the rest of education. But it's very important to start and not to procrastinate. A lot of times people are looking for the best conditions to invest. It's the old saying, a farmer who waits for perfect weather never plants. Maybe the opportunity was missed whenever a baby was born to open a 529 account. Maybe all of a sudden that beneficiary, that child's in kindergarten or middle school. We're often asked when's the best time, or is it ever too late to start investment? No, it's never too late. And the thing to keep in mind is to do it today. The conditions will never be perfect, but the important thing is to start and to take things from there. Qualified expenses, I mentioned that. These include tuition and fees, room and board, books, computers. And recently, what's been added to qualified expenses are apprenticeships and recognizing student loan debt. You can take up to $10,000 per beneficiary towards repaying student loan debt. What are some of the comparisons of getting you towards tips and best practices? Whenever you say 401k, almost to a person, folks know you're talking about retirement. When you say 529, you don't always get that response. What we would endeavor is to get to a point where people readily recognize what a 529 plan is, what it isn't, what it can be used for. And at the end of the day, if they say, I'm going to look at other options, or I have other resources that I'm going to use and not solely relying on loans, then we've won the day. And that's what we would want to get to. As far as best practices are looking around, it's like any purchase or investment that you do, shop around. We urge you to look at your state. Many states offer a tax incentive for residents who invest in their plan. Here in Ohio, you can take up to $4,000 per beneficiary, off of your Ohio taxable income. Now, that's not a ceiling or a cap on what you can invest in your 529. And if you would go over that, in Ohio, you have unlimited carryover. So look at your state, what incentives they offer, for a 529. Look at the long term. You're not. This is a long haul, albeit it's not like retirement where you have 20, 30, 40, 50 years maybe of investment. You're probably looking at a 10 to 20 year investment time period. But you don't want to look at a plan that's a flash in a pan that has a 1 year performance that's great. But how about 3, 5, 10 years? How's that plan performing? Look at the agency. Can you trust it? Our agency is called the Ohio Tuition Trust Authority. We take that trust aspect of it very seriously. People are trusting us with their money, their funds. And while stock market investments cannot guarantee the return, the portfolios are developed. They're very deliberate. And keeping in mind with our consultants, with our partners, stock market volatility to create the conditions for the best return possible for our investors. Another part to consider is governance. We have an 11-person investment board. By Ohio law, these individuals have to have banking, accounting, financial planning background, and they have the ultimate decision on our portfolio lineup. I would submit any good plan would have that. And what is the composition of the board and the way that they manage and do their due diligence. For investors, look at schools. Again, shopping around. What's the best value for an education? We've heard stories of individuals say from here in Ohio. I have a friend who's rather animated. And his daughter was looking at schools, and she wanted to go to Florida to a school, and that was one of her dream schools. His line was, "My money is a terrible thing to waste," and so he sat down with her and said, "Look, here's what we've saved. If you choose an in-state opportunity, we can pretty much cover this. If you go out of state to what you think you want to pursue, we maybe can do a year and maybe some change, a semester, a half a semester on it. The rest is going to be on you." Fast forward, this person chose an education opportunity here in Ohio, came out, works for a great company with putting her marketing degree into play. And hasn't looked back on it. She's none the worse for wear, because she didn't get to go to her quote unquote dream school. Another thing to look at in selecting, degrees, what you're going to pay for school, how much loan you're going out. What is the debt ratio to what the earning potential is on the other end? that's something to consider. If you invest in a 529 and you've been very aggressive and your plan's grown, then I guess you don't have to worry about that. But if you're going to go the loan route, you definitely need to consider that. We encourage people to consider when investing in 529s or look at the other options. There's 529 plans. There's everyday bank accounts. There's Coverdale Education, UGMA, UTMA, Roth IRAs, educational savings bonds. All have pros and cons. But one feature that I'd like to emphasize about the 529 is the account owner owns the account. The account owner owns the account. Now, the intentions of these other investment options may be, set up. They're intended for education opportunities after high school, only to find that some of them, whenever the beneficiary comes of age, it becomes theirs. And they may want to pull that out to backpack the national parks in our country here, or to use it for something else other than education. The 529 has no shelf life, and the account owner owns the account. Another point of financial aid. Some people feel that financial or having a 529 is a deterrent to financial aid. 5.64%. 5.64%. So what's the perspective of that? You have $10,000 in your 529 account. Only $564 of that counts towards, in the FAFSA calculations for the estimated financial contribution for a family. So it's very minimal. In the long run, you're going to come out. Just in closing, I'd like to highlight some key themes here for 2022. I mentioned, the apprenticeships have been added and student loan repayment. In our plan, we're excited this spring. We adjusted our glide path. Our principal partner in our direct space is Vanguard, along with Dimensional Fund Advisors, and we have a Fifth Third banking product. We went to a target enrollment portfolio. And so for age base, if the investors that select the age base, this works much like retirement. For instance, if a beneficiary was born this year in 2022, they would be in a 2040 fund. And what this does is the investments are very aggressive on the onset. And as you approach that target date, whenever it's anticipated that the beneficiary will be using those resources for education expenses, it becomes more conservative. We're really excited about that, and we think this will yield great returns for our investors. We also launched, and other plans have starting to do this as well, a mobile application for your phone. It's the reality of today. We have, we do everything on our phones. To include our banking, our financial, planning and monitoring. And so we launched the Ready Save app, 529 app in November. It's been very popular. We started out with just the very fundamentals of what people can use to contribute and to manage their account. We're looking this year to add more features to it to get to the point where many other financial institutions and banking institutions are on that. We have some exciting things as far as this 529 day. We mentioned on that. We'll be launching a $10,000 giveaway. Love to give away money, and these are college savings awards. This will be done in conjunction with our one of our pro sports partners, the Cincinnati Reds. You can it'll run through the summer. And this will be accumulated with the end of the season with an on-field presentation at one of the Reds' home games. And again, a $10,000 contribution. You don't need to be from Ohio. You don't need to be a Reds fan. You don't need to be a Ohio 529 customer, to enroll into this. And later this summer, we'll do a similar giveaway with our partners, the Cleveland Guardians, as well. With that, I could go on and on. I see Paul nodding. I think we need to move on. I'll be very happy to answer any questions you may have in the Q&A or during the chat. Thanks again for tuning in and for your interest in 529. This is again the day that you smile about these industry created days, but this one I think is vitally important because again we want to get to the point where we just saturate the country, where everybody knows what a 529 is, what it isn't, what it can do, what it can't do, and to make a very smart or intelligent decision as to whether to invest in a plan or not. So back to you, Paul.
Thank you, Tim. And before I jump in, thank you for the questions, Galena, Donna, Claire. Just a lot of great questions come in on the chat, and please feel free to continue to have them in. And as we go into the spring and into the summer, it's great to hear about all the different great work you do with the Cincinnati Reds and all the different baseball teams. And I guess your team also did worked with the Columbus hockey team as well. I guess not to show them the love as well as we're in the off season. Tim, do you want to mention the NHL hockey collaboration as well, or?
Yes, thank you. We target our marketing into three distinct areas. We direct our efforts to employers, again, to raise the awareness of just talked about. We direct our efforts to schools and libraries. And then this area we call special events. And we have partnerships with virtually all the professional sports teams here in Ohio, but we're just not pro sports fans. We direct those because we have a lot of relationships with their community foundations. And you go out to ballparks and stadiums and you look around, like these teams, they want to grow their fan base. We want to grow the 529 fan base. And so there's a great power in the co-branding with these. But we also have partnerships with the Ohio History Connection, the Great Lakes Science Center, the Invention League, the Invention Convention here in Ohio. And to the question about the Columbus Blue Jackets, we're coming out of COVID like everybody. We're getting our marketing sea legs back on us, and we were able this past season to do in-stadium, in-arena presentations. And so at the end of April, we had the opportunity to make up for the past 3 years with presentations. And so we had the big check presentations. It was on the Jumbotron in the arena. And so the visual of giving away $30,000 of college savings awards was very, very powerful. And then again, like we do what I mentioned with the Reds and the Guardians, it's the Jackets were just wonderful. We had a suite. And so the families got to enjoy the games. We've completely ruined kids because they think that's the way you go to a suite to watch any of these sporting events. You have your bathroom right there. You have food and beverages, and it's just a wonderful way to watch the event. And again, with our marketing, with our partners, in this case, the Blue Jackets, this co-branding is very, very powerful.
Thank you so much, Tim. The goal from my perspective on 529 Day is just to raise awareness and understanding about the importance of saving efficiently for education and career development and education and training. So thank you so much, Tim. And as we go through the slides, I'll try to pull you in and see if there's any color commentary on the upcoming slides. But in the meantime, I see there's a lot of questions coming in on the chat. So we'll toggle on and off to swap for a little bit. In terms of the national numbers for the market data for 529 college savings plans, for this first quarter 2022, we saw an increase in number of accounts. In this quarter, there was a 1% increase of accounts, broadly speaking, and there was an increase in gross sales money coming into the 529 space, probably the highest on record for the first quarter. So definitely 529 plans are becoming more and more popular. There was a slight dip in the assets overall for the industry, just more of a reflection of the market performance that was taking place in the first quarter. But broadly speaking, we can see, at least for myself, we've been covering 529 plans since 2002. I started covering 529 plans in 2010. So it's been growing rapidly over the years. Moving on for a moment over to ABLE accounts, which are also called 529A for ABLE accounts. able accounts are help families save and pay efficiently for families with disabilities. Very similar legislative tax structure. So we do cover that product as well, but it is a relatively new product. That being said, the accounts increased 6.7% in the first quarter. Assets were also increasing. The slight difference about able accounts is that the investment options are much more target risk, and by that I mean conservative, moderate, and aggressive. Where 529 plans tend to be target date or enrollment date, so gliding towards a date such as enrollment towards an educational program. But for able accounts, 64% of the assets were in conservative target risk options, and the assets continued to grow. Talking about money coming in, 65% of the accounts are making contributions, 18% of which were making their contributions automatically. There's an interesting provision for able to work, so incremental ability to save more for those that are working, so 1.2% of accounts of contributions were coming through the employer channel, money out. So roughly 16% of accounts were taking distribution. So broadly speaking, money is coming in, money is being saved, and money is being used for able accounts, and so they are being successfully used to help families save and pay for qualified expenses as well. In terms of industry updates, there is a continuation of positive beneficial legislation taking place within the 529 space. There was a bill introduced, not implemented or live, but introduced, still a long way between introduction and actually implementation of, broadly speaking, Senate Bill 4103 that would allow for, with a lot of different constraints, but broadly speaking, the ability to roll over 529 assets over to IRAs. The actual implementation reading language of the ruling is still to be announced, but broadly speaking, there is capabilities on the horizon to be able to roll over 529 assets over to IRAs, and that would be a great benefit. Good feedback so far to that. But a lot of this other the other bullet points on this slide really kind of show about big picture kind of adjustments taking place. For example, in June, there will be a live new program being offered by Census and Goldman Sachs in the state of Arizona in June. We also saw in Oregon, the MFS 529 plan change record keepers to Vestwell in May. On the more distribution broker-dealer home office front, Raymond James converted the Hartford Smart 529 plan to its Omnibus platform. Broadly speaking, makes the usage and reporting for that plan, for that broker-dealer home office easier to do. People on the move. So New Mexico has hired a new executive director, Natalie Cordova, CPA. So she has been, her appointment has been announced. And also in April, a Census released a press release, just basically announcing that the addition of two folks to their team, Martha Slitt and DJ Johnson. On the ABLE side, there's the ABLE Age Adjustment Act. If passed, would increase the age of onset for eligibility for opening an ABLE account from 26 years old to 26 years old to 46 years old for age of onset in terms of eligibility to open ABLE account. That bill has been introduced, and there's been that right there. That slide shows the status board of basically the support so far to date for those two bills in the Senate and the House. People on the move, Eric Ochbonic has been transitioned to National Association of State Treasurers. And also we have two additional announcements, two with Vestwell, one is with Steve Job, Senior Vice President, 529 and ABLE Product Management. I've been working with him a long time in the 529 space, and for Mary Rubinas also joined Vestwell, and she's been a speaker at the ABLE Afternoon Summit in the past. So congrats and kudos to Steve and Mary. Top 5 trends in 2022. The first one is the value of education continues to increase. Broadly speaking, as the more education leads to higher income. So there's definitely straight and direct value to be had in terms of just more education leads to higher income. And even through the 2020 to 2022 market cycle, that relation continued as well. This is a chart that shows unemployment rates by level of education. Broadly speaking, the higher the level of education, the lower the level of unemployment. And we can see the middle of the chart of 2008 timeframe where even though there was an increase in unemployment, that those levels were, as I like to call, layer cake, if you will, in terms of just that order of more education led to lower levels of unemployment. And we saw that again in 2020, 2021, where there was an increase in unemployment and then subsequent decrease at the tail end of 2021. And so like more education leads to lower unemployment even through this most recent cycle. So the value of education continues to increase. The second trend is that the 529 utilization continues to increase. Broadly speaking, accounts increased. There was 15.8 million 529 accounts as of March 2022, 14.9 million in 529 savings accounts, 0.9 million in 529 prepaid plans. So broadly speaking, 529 plans continue to grow in terms of usage. This chart really, comes from our most recent survey of parents in April 2022, which shows that 26% of parents earning over $25,000 a year save for their children's education with a 529 plan. 45% are saving for future educational expenses, but just not with a 529 plan, such as a bank or brokerage account. And 29% are not saving for college at all. But broadly speaking, lo and behold, over one fourth of parents are saving for future educational expenses with 529 plans as of April 2022. So broadly speaking, 529 usage continues to increase. The third element, which is great to see, is just the ease of use is on the rise. Broadly speaking, if we look at the entire cycle from educational content expanding for YouTube channels, newsletters, and blogs, and OTTA does a great job in terms of just creating and putting out to the world YouTube videos, newsletters, and blogs, and all these different articles to create that buzz and overall increase overall awareness for 529 plans and the need to save and pay efficiently for future educational costs. So once someone is aware of 529 plans and looks to open up an account, there's a number of great calculators out there. OTTA, for example, has a college savings planner, cost of waiting, tax benefit tools. So just really analyzing all the different ways to save and pay efficiently for education. So a lot of educational content to build awareness, calculators and tools once you're in the decision-making process. Once the account is opened, just all the different maintenance functionalities is there as well with that Ready Save 529 mobile app, and it does have gifting functionality. So once the account is open, just making the money come in easier, by way of mobile app. And then once we're in the usage stage, there's been an announcement this year about Flywire partnering with the census to digitize the distribution process from the 529 account into paying directly to the colleges. So across the entire life cycle of saving, paying, and repaying the cost of education, 529s are becoming easier to use, and that is great to see. The fourth one is, and as I kind of put it from the perspective of just, with all the different market volatility going on, and this being a long 18-year time horizon for most parents in terms of saving and paying for college, the value of automatic contributions helping families to save is just so important. Roughly 1/3 of contributions coming in are coming in automatically by way of automatic contributions, and roughly 37% of accounts have automatic contributions set up. It's just one great defense for saving through all the different market cycles, life cycles, and it's just a great way to make one decision and set and forget. I was listening to the audiobook yesterday, not really thinking about it, but The Automatic Millionaire or The Latte Factor by David Bach, great book to read or listen to audibly. But it's just the value of automatic contributions, making one decision to save and pay for education and setting it up automatically is just one way to go. And one perspective that I really like to think about is that the average amount coming in automatically is $190 per month, which is $6 a day. So for $6 a day, that is all that is needed to really help just set up and get one started towards creating a college financial plan over time. But there's a lot of different sort of ideologies about just finding different ways to pivot money currently spent to saving for college. For example, paying for childcare at a before kindergarten, for example, and pivoting that money over from paying for daycare over to future educational expenses, a lot of different ways to really save on that $6 a day. And of course, for David Bach, it's much more a latte factor of, just, not spending money on coffee or little different latte factors, for example. But, I just think that there's so much, rebuttal to be said about the, the weather happening today broadly, but also just the value of all the different ups and downs for the value of automatic contributions. And as we think about the spring and heading towards spring, for my family, we went to Carbon County, Poconos, Pennsylvania. It's just an area that is just has a lot of hardworking families, and I just thought it was something that sort of grabbed me from the road of really the positioning of 529 plans being transitioned just as a 529 college plan to college and career. So the font's kind of small, but the title is 529 College and Career Savings Program for families looking to save and pay efficiently, not just for college, but apprenticeships and all these different ways to really help families train and retrain. And, as we sort of enter this post, COVID pandemic world where, it's just so important to tool and retool throughout one's career. But, broadly speaking, the broadening the usage of 529 plans from college to education and career, it's a storyboard that is important not just for 529 users and 529 non-529 savers, but non-savers as well. I'll probably pull in Tim to ask you the question of just because it is striking to me, 32% of non-savers currently say that they would be likely to start saving if learned how to use 529s for apprenticeship. And I was curious, Tim, how does your team currently, just broadly speaking, help families to learn about this capability of using 529 plans for apprenticeship? It is new, but outreach is underway, and I was just curious about how your team helps to get that message out there.
What is any, like in forums like this, and any time we have the opportunity to discuss 529s, we do add it, like we did here, the updates that apprenticeships are now included. And as to your point, this gets passed, and like the billboard that you shared here, just in it ourselves, we're college advantage, and people automatically think that. But this is for trade, technical schools, and any education entity that has a federal code. And then recognizing, as you noted, the post-COVID time and infrastructure bills have been passed, and this demand is going to be for plumbers and electricians and welders and bricklayers and all these other trade type entities. But the apprenticeships also, they're in the medical and IT fields as well. And so this just expands that. And so we, through our communications with our blogs, with conversations that we have with people, we invite their attention to this, and this is a very real item, and there could be expenses associated to it. And here, gets to that point whenever that bulletin board has this young child, and when people ask all the time, is like, I don't know what this baby's going to grow up to be. We don't know. And maybe they will be a welder, maybe they will be a doctor, maybe they will be a nurse, maybe they'll be a teacher, who knows. But 529s are readily available to help with any expenses associated with those programs.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I know in discussion with my cousins as well, and in terms of them just asking, well, what if they don't go to college? It's like, well, it can be also used for apprenticeships. And I know for him, his parents didn't go to college, and so it's just for him it was a reassurance that I want them to be trained up in some way down the road. But I do have an uncle, Paul, who's a welder and had a great career over a long time. And of course, there's a lot of the tools and training. And my mother is a nurse, so with all the different credentials and training that they do as well, it's a timely topic, and especially as we all sort of retool in this new world going forward. And so we look forward to it. And for now, I'll jump over to the question and answer. I do see the questions jumping up. I didn't know if you, Tim, wanted to address any of the questions while I read through, or we can take a pause and go.
Yeah, if I could, Paul, very, very quickly. I know our folks are trying to keep up with it, and please, if we don't get your question either live or in the chat, we will capture that and reach out to you, through your email to answer your question. All good questions. One that came up, and this is like a little bit to the point we're talking here. What if you don't use your 529? What are the options? And I didn't mention it, and I'm glad I can now. Very flexible what you can do with your 529. As I mentioned, there's no shelf life, so it's not like whenever a beneficiary reaches a particular age that this 529 turns into a pumpkin. It can go on indefinitely. Maybe whenever the beneficiary graduates from high school, they're not sure what they're going to do, and they may decide a few years later, well, your 529 is still working and growing until that time comes. Maybe there are other resources, or just flat out that person's just not going to need funding for education, then very easily to transfer among other family members. And the Internal Revenue Code, that's where the 529 comes from, 529, and Congress, establishes the law, as far as your 529 says a very broad definition of what a family member is. This is anyone by blood or even by marriage. And we're talking first cousins to son-in-law, and everything in between. And if at the end of the day, there's no family members to transfer it to, or you don't want to use it for yourself, which you can certainly do, and you decide to withdraw those funds, that would be an unqualified withdrawal. And you would pay, remember, it was after-tax dollars that were going into there, so you'd pay only tax on your earnings, and you would pay a 10% penalty, much like what if you took an early withdrawal from a retirement account. So a lot of flexibility, shouldn't be a limitation as to that, that open-ended question, what if we don't use that?
Agreed. Great points. As a quick response to Joni's question about, someday was actually relabeled to Vest Well, so that was just more of a administrative, shift. That's a public announcement there on that side. There was a question about the, too late. Is there scenarios where it's too late to save? And I know for me, and Tim, you touched upon it as well, but every dollar counts. I think let's just say over 30 years, the current interest rates. I mean, you like a dollar saved is actually more than a dollar earned in principal plus interest. So it's actually, it's never too early, it's never too late. I just think that there's a lot of different ways to make it incremental, ways to save more, save efficiently, because each and every dollar saved along the way is more than a dollar down the road. But Tim, any thoughts and feedback about, is there ever a case where it's too late, or?
I would say no. Obviously, if a beneficiary is in high school, you don't have a lot of time going into that, but you can be creative. That's why I would urge you to have a plan, both in selecting that educational opportunity, but also as far as financing. Maybe you are late to it. Keep in mind that loans may be coming into play. So maybe a scenario is that the beneficiaries in high school, and so you're looking for resources towards the back end of that education experience, or even to build up some funds to help offset that student loan debt. So you might want to do that. There's just many different approaches, and I would submit that it's never too late. If you recall too, if your state has the tax benefit, you can take advantage of that. That helps you with a little bit of savings as well. And so don't it's not hopeless. And I encourage you to, whatever time it is, just start today.
Yep. And I think as we sort of get closer to then, one question or just thought that I've seen is just, the value of the employer channel. The employer channel, one can, work somewhere, set up an automatic contribution from their employer, say a certain percentage into their account. And it's just a great way to, help families to, save over the long term, but, throughout the market cycles, right? It's sort of like the thinking, what you don't see, you don't spend. But, Tim, it would be great to kind of get your take on families using that, enrolling through the employer channel.
It is, and the employers that we've encountered are supported to the payroll deduction, and to Paul's point, you have that Well, like what we did, I use a person anecdote. Our children were born in 92, 93, and the 529s weren't around, but we had the expectation that they would do something after high school. And so we opened mutual funds. And I was in the Army at the time. Very modestly, I would start with $50. It came out of my payroll, out of sight, out of mind. And then as things got paid off, or as maybe we got a pay raise, our economic situation improved, we would increase that. And we were very disciplined that we never rated those funds. And so fast forward to the time came that to draw on that. The downside is we pay taxes whenever those gains, and we pay taxes on it. If we had a 529, we wouldn't have done that. And whenever we withdrew the funds for those education expenses, we paid taxes on it. But all along, one, our kids knew that there were funds available, so they knew that that's the expectation. We didn't necessarily sit down at the dinner table every night and say, okay, you're going to go to college and here's how the college fund's going or anything like that. They knew that. And I think that helped, to manage the expectations and to ensure their success. And, if you just set that up, and Paul's talking about foregoing certain things, maybe if it's not a latte, it's pizza, or it's, some other thing that maybe you do without to direct the funds towards your 529, do the payroll deduction, and you'll be pleased, because what that does is reinforce your decision to invest. We hear that oftentimes that, wow, I just started out very modestly. My account's doing really good. That wasn't too painful. We can up that a little bit more. We thought we could save 30, 40%, the expenses. Yeah, maybe we can do better. We can get over 50%. And so all that, encourages and buttresses that. Really quickly, we had a question about the market, and yeah, it is tough right now, not only for people in the 529 who are looking to draw on their 529 funds to pay for those education savings, but people in retirement as well. Look at that, have a plan. You maybe delay, because we can't guarantee it, but we feel very confident that the market will come back. If you go back to March of 2020, some of the worst days in market history occurred when COVID hit. And people who backed out of the market, I think didn't make the best decision, because come April, there were some of the best days in the market history that came about. Now, inflation, the war in Ukraine, various things that are factoring on the market, maybe we won't see that rebound in the next in the weeks or a few months here. But one, I would urge to keep the faith. And if you can avoid, delaying and withdrawing from that, then okay. An option that we have a Fifth Third banking product, and so you can have a 529 savings account or CD. And if you want to pull funds to help preserve your wealth, the interest rates are better than their regular past, savings and CD rates. You can help preserve, and you have the banking insurance. So there are different ways to get out of that, but I wanted to make note of that as well.
Definitely agree. And as a last statement, I know for me in closing, 529 plans, the usage has been expanding, the demographics have been expanding. The product's been getting easier to use, and the investment lineups are becoming more institutional strength, which is great. From a marketing perspective, we are broadening the understanding, the usage, and the demographics, and broadly speaking, on the topic of distribution, that the product is becoming easier to use, and so it's with everything going on the world, it's great to see that 529 plans are growing, are strengthening, getting broader, more usage, more usage. I know for me, I appreciate the time today. And Tim, do you have any last comments as to close out the 529 day 2022 webinar?
Again, thank you for joining us, and thank you for your questions. I wish we could get to them live right now or through the chat. And again, if we don't, we will respond. They're very, very important questions. And again, we appreciate your interest and wanting to be knowledgeable about 529. And just finally, we just have to say happy 529 Day, everybody, and get started today if you haven't already.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Tim. Thank you, everyone. Happy 529 day. Talk soon. Thank you. Bye.
And that concludes today's webinar. Just a reminder that there is a survey that will pop up on your screen afterwards. We appreciate any feedback that you can share with us. Thanks, everyone.